Since COVID-19 has been keeping us all at home, in my neighborhood anyway, there's a lot of us going out for walks every day. And I mean, there's a gaggle of people walking. In fact, you have to be careful about 6 feet for sometimes. And a couple of times in this past week alone, several folks have come up to me and they know who I am and they know what I do. And they say to me, you know, I wish we could see a sign. I wish we could see a sign that we're okay and what's going on. And I got to thinking about that, and so just bear with me on this, okay? Some 2,000 years ago, Jesus walked this earth. He brought messages for life, guidelines, a roadmap given to his disciples and others in the form of stories, parables, and teachings. And human beings are the highest form of life on this earth. We possess self-awareness, intelligence, logic, reason, verbal communication. In Jesus' ministry, he healed the sick, brought sight from blindness, silenced storms, raised the dead, and still his most devoted continued to misunderstand him. They asked for a sign of clarification. Give me a sign, show me, they asked. And Jesus did, the great commandment, as recorded in the gospel according to St. Matthew. When the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest? He said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love not meant to be the warm, fuzzy feeling one gets when told, I love you, but rather love allowing another person to become the very best that they can be, to allow them to grow, to give aid and comfort when needed, food, clothing, and shelter. A simple smile, a handshake, or today, a bump. It's just to allow them to grow, an embrace of caring, a genuine sign of affection to another human being. In the time of Jesus, people were born, raised, lived, and died within their respective villages. Loving your neighbor then should have been relatively easy because they knew everyone. Oh, how Jesus understood humanity as he proclaimed his commandment. His words are as alive today in the 21st century as they were then. Times have changed, though, haven't they? This is the age of electronics, jet aircraft, instant everything, and what isn't soon will be. What difference can I make? I'm too busy to love my neighbor. I have to work 2 jobs to make ends meet. I've just been laid off and I'm moving to another state to seek work. God, how can I love my neighbor as I love myself? Give me a sign. Show me, we ask. Where do I look? In books? Magazines? The internet. Where? What about all of God's creation? What about God's other creatures? Can they teach me? I'm convinced that God sends the time of Jesus to us time and again, over and over and over. Perhaps God is revealed through nature, the sky, the animals, and all the other living creatures. Many years ago, I read an article about geese, specifically Canada geese, those beautiful tan, black, and white birds. You've seen them, stand about that tall. They fly north in the spring and south in the winter. You've seen them. They fly in a V formation, and they fly together in flocks, thousands of air miles each season. And it's interesting why they fly in a V. Each bird, as they fly just a little bit above the bird in front of them, because the air coming back off of their wings is softened, and it gives them a little less pressure on them, and they can fly easier and less energy. So the bird that leads sets the pace and provides the direction. But this particular bird becomes tired quickly because there's no bird in front of him and must be relieved by another bird. Nobody knows how or why, but they do. They go up and they relieve that bird and spell him and let that bird fall back and get some rest. At the same time, should one of these geese become overly tired or ill or injured, it falls out of formation and begins a gentle spiral descent to earth. But at the same time, a second goose falls out of the formation with the stricken goose, becoming its companion, remaining with it as it recuperates and goes down to earth with it. When rested, they rejoin other geese flying by. Does this sound familiar? Aren't we all on a flight through life? Have we ever fallen out of formation? Seeking a safe place to land, to rejuvenate, to recharge our batteries, to heal? Have we ever been just so tired that we simply couldn't go on? Felt ill or sad, anxious or perplexed and stressed out? Conversely, are we willing to notice someone else who has fallen out of the formation, to take the time out of our day to fall out of formation with them, to stay with them if needed, to become their companion, to watch after them, to provide a safe haven for them to recover, to rest? People can go an entire week haggard by their jobs, stressed out by financial worries, domestic challenges, COVID-19. We may well be the only person to extend a hand in friendship, to provide a warm smile, to say, how are you? How are you doing? I'm glad to see you. The only act of friendship another person may experience. Give me a sign. Show me, we ask. While I was in seminary in Rochester, New York, I was passing by a small lake which bordered a freeway interchange. I looked over at a picnic area next to a small body of water with lush green grass right down to the water's edge. And I saw two Canada geese, one at the water's edge drinking, and the other standing nearby, majestically. And I remember the article that I had read. Wow, there they were, two geese out of the formation. It was true, one the companion to the other, and it was a beautiful sight. The very next day, I made the same journey. And as I approached the area of the small body of water, I wondered, will I be privileged to once again see these two majestic geese? Off to the right side of the road, I saw a goose that apparently had been struck by a car and was slammed into the guardrail, lying motionless. I pulled over into the emergency lane and I stopped. And I walked back toward the stricken bird. What I witnessed here caused an avalanche of feelings, those of sadness and despair, but also of warmth and of love. Because you see, standing majestically by the fallen bird was the second goose, watching as if standing guard. And I was speechless. A lump formed in my throat. I was witnessing a true caring of one creature for another. And I carried the fallen bird from the edge of the road, and I carried it down to the grassy area by the water's edge. And the other goose shadowed me, but stayed at a cautious distance, but close by nonetheless, watching cautiously as I carried its companion. I laid the fallen goose in the lush green grass not far from the water. And as I moved away, the second goose again went back to the side of the companion. And I wondered, what if the fallen bird was the original companion, the one who had fallen out of formation with the other? Was this a living out in nature of Jesus's words? This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. And the words of Paul to the Romans. We do not live to ourselves, and we do not die to ourselves. If we live to the Lord. And if we die to the Lord. So then, whether we live or whether we die, we are the Lord's. When I go to heaven, surely I shall once again see these two magnificent creatures standing tall and majestic next to that pond with lush green grass down at the water's edge. Give me a sign, we ask. Show me how to love my neighbor, we ask. All around us, every day, there are signs and examples that remind us of our Christian obligation and the opportunity to reach out a hand. Dare we do less than the example shown by the geese? For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you gave me clothing. I was sick and you took care of me. I was in prison and you visited me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you? And the king will answer them, truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me. You did it to me. Amen.